All right, so get this. We are diving deep into AI today. And, those crazy hard high school math competitions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the International Math Olympiad, IMO for short. It's basically the Olympics, but for math, for like young math geniuses.
Yep.
And AI is now not just competing, it's
No.
actually winning, beating some of the best.
Yeah, that's right. And it really is amazing, like we're not talking about some calculator that can just do sums faster or something.
Right.
This is AI actually learning to think like geometrically, shapes and proofs and all that, which we always thought was something only humans could do.
Exactly. And the AI system, it's called AlphaGeometry2, made by Google DeepMind. I've been looking at some articles and research on it. It's mind-blowing how far this stuff has come.
Yeah, it's a huge step up from what they had before, the AlphaGeometry one.
Oh, there was a previous one.
This new one, it can understand way more geometry ideas. Like before, it could do maybe 66% of the IMO problems.
Okay.
Now it's up to 88%. Just by adding, more to its vocabulary, things like points that move, linear equations, that sort of stuff.
That's a massive jump. I mean, is that like going from, I don't know, basic math to like calculus?
Pretty much, yeah.
So how did they make it so much smarter? Did they just like feed it a ton more data?
Well, data's part of it for sure. They train this AlphaGeometry2 on a massive set of geometry problems, way bigger and more varied than what the old one had. It's like, imagine going from practicing on a few drills to training in a whole simulation.
Oh, okay. So it's had way more practice. But is it also using like better tools now? I think I read something about a faster engine and some fancy new search algorithm.
You're spot on. They actually built this new one in C++C, which basically means it's 300 times faster now.
Wow.
So it can like crunch through calculations and try different ways to solve things way quicker.
It's like giving I don't know, like a master chef a brand new kitchen, right?
Exactly.
All the best tools.
Yeah, exactly. And there's more. Remember that search algorithm I mentioned? So instead of trying one solution at a time, this thing uses multiple searches, like trees, all working at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah. Imagine a whole team of like AI mathematicians brainstorming together.
Oh, okay.
Each one's trying different stuff and they're sharing what they find. And that shared knowledge, it helps the AI, it helps it cover more ground and find answers faster.
So it's working harder and smarter.
Exactly.
And this leads to some pretty crazy results, right? Didn't AlphaGeometry2 actually beat like some human IMO winners?
It did, yeah. Out of 50 IMO geometry problems from, the last 25 years, it solved 42 of them. That's a higher score than the average gold medal winner.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah. But it's not just about the scores, right? The way AlphaGeometry2 solves these things, the researchers use the word elegant to describe them. What does that even mean when we're talking about AI? That's a great question. It means this AI isn't just like brute forcing its way to the answer. It's actually learning and using logical rules, making deductions. It's even coming up with like creative strategies that human mathematicians might miss. In some cases, the solutions have actually surprised the experts.
Okay, you've got to give me an example. Like, what's one of these elegant solutions that just like blew everyone away?
Okay, so there's this great one from the 2024 IMO competition, problem number 4. Now, this problem, it was all about finding a specific relationship between some angles and midpoints in this really complex diagram. And AlphaGeometry2, it goes and constructs this extra point.
I have a point.
Yeah, in a place that nobody expected. Seemed totally random at first,
Huh.
but it turned out to be the key to the whole thing. It revealed all these hidden connections and led to this really simple, elegant proof.
So it's like AlphaGeometry2 saw something the humans didn't, like some hidden pattern or connection that unlocked the solution.
Exactly, and that's what makes this research so fascinating. We're not just building AI that can solve stuff. We're pushing the limits of how we think about math itself and maybe even finding new ways to understand geometry that could help us humans too.
This is wild. It's like AI is showing us that there's more than one way to, like, see a geometry problem.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, to show us how AI could help us understand math in new ways, maybe even find solutions that we miss because we think, in our usual ways.
Okay, so if AlphaGeometry2 is so good, are there any problems it can't solve?
Well, of course, it's still being developed, right? Out of those 50 IMO problems, it couldn't solve 6 of them.
Oh, okay.
Those 6, they use things like inequalities or had a changing number of points, things AlphaGeometry2 can't handle yet.
So future upgrades. Makes sense. What about the other 2 it struggled with?
Those are really interesting. They show what the system still needs to learn. Like those problems, they used really advanced stuff like inversion and projective geometry.
Those sound intense.
Yeah, they are. Even for like experienced mathematicians, those are tough concepts. It's like asking a chef to make a souffle when they don't know how to whisk eggs.
Got it. So it's not that AlphaGeometry 2 can't solve them. It just needs more tools, more advanced techniques.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, those techniques can be added. The researchers are always expanding what it could do. Maybe in a future version, it'll handle those tough ones no problem.
That's what I love about AI, always evolving. But let's get back to the problems it did solve. Any other examples of those elegant solutions, the ones that surprised everyone?
Oh, tons. Take the IMO 2013 problem. This one, it was about proving a triangle was right angles, but it had all these crazy relationships with circles.
Circles inside of circles, my brain hurts already.
Yeah, it's tough to picture. But the main thing is, AlphaGeometry2 went and made this extra point on the diagram, an auxiliary point that nobody had thought of.
It just like added a point.
Yep. Seemed random, but it was the key. It showed a hidden connection in the diagram, and then the whole proof became easy.
Like a secret door nobody else saw.
Exactly. And then there's the IMO 2014 problem, one of the hardest ever in the Olympiad.
Oh, wow.
AlphaGeometry2's approach was totally new. Instead of solving it directly, it went for a more general solution. Like it zoomed out and found a bigger relationship between the shapes.
Huh.
And that bigger proof, it then automatically proved the specific thing they were looking for.
So it took a detour, found a scenic route that nobody else thought of.
Exactly. It's like you're trying to get somewhere, and instead of the direct route, you find this beautiful, more efficient path that nobody knew about.
I love that. It makes AI seem like creative. It's not just crunching numbers, it's thinking outside the box.
And that's what makes AlphaGeometry 2 more than a problem solver. It's showing us what AI might be capable of, how it can push the boundaries of what we know in math.
Okay, but this whole language thing is still tripping me up. Like, AlphaGeometry 2 is great with geometry, but does it actually understand math language the way we do? Could it write out a proof with explanations and steps like a human?
That's a great question, and the researchers are working on it. They're seeing if the language part of AlphaGeometry 2 can go beyond just suggesting things and actually write whole proofs on its own.
So, like, could AI write a math textbook someday?
Maybe. It's not there yet, but the early results are promising. It's starting to make logical steps, like a human mathematician would.
So it's not just following instructions, it's actually thinking like a mathematician.
Exactly, and that's where it gets really exciting. What if AI could not only solve things, but also explain its reasoning so we understand? That would be huge for education, research, even understanding intelligence itself.
Okay, before we go full existential crisis about AI becoming our math overlords, let's talk about something else that's been bugging me. We keep saying AI needs this special language for math. Do they really need that? Couldn't it just learn from regular English? It just seems like, I don't know, math has its own symbols and logic and stuff. Wouldn't AI need its own special language to get it?
Yeah, that's what they thought at first, too. The first AlphaGeometry, it had its own custom language, like AI math.
They made a whole new language just for AI to do geometry. Crazy.
It was a big job, but it seemed necessary. But when they were making AlphaGeometry 2, they tried something different. They trained some models with the custom language and some with just plain English. And guess what?
The English ones learn just as well?
Exactly. No difference in how they performed.
Wow, so all that work on a special language was maybe not needed.
It's not that simple. The custom language is still really precise and efficient, but this shows us AI might be way more flexible than we thought.
It's like AI is saying, I can learn math from, like, a novel if I have to.
Well, maybe not a novel, but you get the point. This is huge for how we think about AI and math and how we can teach math in the future.
It makes you wonder if AI can learn from, like, everyday language. Could it help us understand math better? Like, translate the hard stuff into something easier?
Definitely. Imagine AI tutors that can explain anything, no matter how complicated, in a way anyone can get. Or AI helpers for solving problems without needing to decipher crazy formulas.
That would be a lifesaver for anyone who's ever struggled with math. But wait, there's more. I read about these tokenizers, too, and how they weren't that important after all. What's that about?
Right, the tokenizers. Think of them as the things that break down text into chunks that the AI can understand. In the old AlphaGeometry, they had a special tokenizer just for their math language.
Like a special dictionary for AI math whizzes?
Yeah, something like that. But with AlphaGeometry 2, they tried using a more general tokenizer, one made for all kinds of text, not just math.
And
It worked. Again, no real difference in how well it did. AlphaGeometry 2, with this general tokenizer, still aced those IMO problems.
so AI is breaking all the rules. It's doing amazing things without all the special tools and languages we thought it needed.
That's a great point. It really makes us rethink how AI learns and what it takes for it to be successful. It's not just about solving things, it's about showing us how much potential this technology has to help us understand the world in new ways.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I think we both agree AlphaGeometry 2 has left us with way more questions than answers.
Definitely made us curious. AI keeps evolving, solving tough math problems, and it's teaching us about the nature of intelligence itself, it seems.
Well said. A huge thank you to everyone listening to this deep dive into AlphaGeometry 2. Check out the show notes for links to some of the cool visuals and solutions we talked about. And until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.